365 Sports.
The Kansas City Chiefs take on the Houston Texans in what is a must-win game on Sunday Night Football. Welcome into 365 Sports, the Chiefs Report. I'm Jason Andrews. We appreciate you hanging out with us. And man, it's a very fun matchup and a very scary matchup come a Sunday at 7:20 p.m. And a lot to talk about, lot to break down, injury reports, predictions, score predictions, odds maker predictions, matchups to focus on. Lots of stuff that is very key and very important for this game and for Kansas City to come out on top and hopefully continue their chances to get into the AFC playoffs. Because as we know, it's the Chiefs. And whenever you have Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Coach Spags on the defensive side of the ball, along with Trent McDuffie, if you make the playoffs, anything is possible. And so let's get right into it today and kind of talk about the injury reports. Let's talk about what we can expect for a multitude of different things on the Chiefs side of things. But also what we want to break down is looking at the Texans and their injuries and what makes them special, because we know just from pretty obvious reports, the Chiefs offense is what we expect. But for the Texans, it is going to be their defense. That is something that we have to look at and watch for. So without further ado, let's go right into the Kansas City Chiefs and their injury report as of today. Again, there will be one more injury report tomorrow that we're kind of hit on a little bit, but really do want to go into the Chiefs and their injury report for this afternoon. So we'll first start from the top down of our did not participate list. Same guys. And the concern continues to grow for names like Christian, Roland, Wallace, Trey Smith, and Jawaan Taylor. And I want to stay optimistic and say that Trey Smith and Taylor can have the chance to play. I want Roland Wallace to play, but in all reality, Smith and Taylor are the more important pieces when you look at the defense that the Texans are going to bring, especially on the defensive line with Will Anderson. Now, some other injuries that were listed, but some that, well, let's say don't maybe matter as much. It's going to be talked about more with guys who were just on the report so that they could kind of comply with the NFL stability. If you don't know, NFL requires you to report any and all injuries. Doesn't matter if you're a full participant at practice all week. If there is something bothering you, you have to report it. And so with that, we have a multitude of guys who were listed on the injury report both yesterday and today, but every single one of them was full participants in both practices. So Brian Cook, he obviously is dealing with that ankle injury still, a full participant on Wednesday and Thursday. It is expected for him to be a full go for the game on Sunday. He might get that questionable tag. I highly doubt it with the way this week is going and what the reports we're receiving out of Kansas City. So that's a very good thing. Noah Gray looks like he is officially out of concussion protocol, full participant on Wednesday and Thursday. The tight end should be back on the squad. And I mean, credit to Jared Wiley, who came in and kind of replaced Noah Gray, had a very good couple of plays in the Cowboys game and did like a lot of what we saw from Noah Gray throughout the season. But the fact of the matter is you could really have a three-headed monster in tight end, not to mention Robert Tonyan has had some success in his NFL career as well. Jaden Hicks, another safety with an injury. He's got a shoulder injury, but is a full participant in both days. Just something to watch for. Young guy, very good at safety, and especially in that safety room, you do want to be wary just because of the injuries in the secondary with Chris Roland Wallace. And of course, Hicks and Cook could be something the Texans could attack. But again, their receivers are nowhere near as, let's be honest, talented or as versatile as CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens. And Nico Collins is nothing to scoff at, but I think that the ideology of Trent McDuffie and Shamari Connor alone could probably handle a couple of the guys for the Houston Texans. George Karlaftis, still listed here on the injury report. He's got a thumb injury. I don't really think too much of it. Full participant in both days, obviously. The one that does kind of spark an intriguing factor to me is that Patrick Mahomes is listed here with what is being labeled right now as a knee injury. I don't know what to exactly make of that for a couple of different reasons. The first one is obviously for a quarterback, the knee is a pivotal part, and It's not just about his mobility. It's not just about his ability to play, but in a lot of ways, that's your plant foot. That could be your plant knee. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go with it, and you really don't want to risk re-injury. And knee is kind of an interesting thing. So, do want to keep a watch out for that. Nothing was reported that seemed to make this any more than just some soreness and tightness, but does spark an intriguing factor when you talk about the capabilities of the likes of Will Anderson and the Texans defensive line, and especially if you're without Trey Smith, Jawaan Taylor, then this defense for the Houston Texans can be a little bit more blitz heavy, let's call it, and try and force the pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And if he's got that knee injury that's nagging, it could limit his ability. Now, most of the time when you get into game time, you're so hyped up on adrenaline alone to just go out there and be able to make it complete, make it work. And in all reality, it's a way to get out there and just kind of forget about all the injuries you've had. Same can be said with Isaiah Pacheco. He was a full participant in both days. That MCL injury obviously kept him out of past couple weeks. Luckily, he was able to come back for the Dallas Cowboys game. I'm of the mindset, and I continue to be of the mindset even after the Cowboys game, that Kareem Hunt should be the RB1 for the Chiefs team from now until Pacheco can prove his worth, and that could happen this game. It could happen later on. It could never happen, but Kareem Hunt has just been the better running back flat out for the past couple weeks that they've both been healthy. I go back, obviously, to the Indianapolis Colts game where he had over 100 yards on 30 carries. At 30 years old, he's no spring chicken, and he's out there doing the smart thing, so really do like that. Nico Romahio, he had a shoulder injury, full participant in practice both days, the wide receiver and return specialist. And then Rasheed Rice, also with a hamstring injury, full participant in both days. Again, anybody who was a full participant in both days, that could include Cook, Gray, Hicks, Karlaftis, Mahomes, Pacheco, Romahio, and Rice, all are expected to be a full go active on Sunday night against the Houston Texans. Want to preface that. But on the opposite ends of things, as of right now, we don't have the Friday injury report for Jawaan Taylor, Trey Smith, and Chris Roland Wallace to even have a chance to play in Sunday's game. They're going to need to be a limited participant tomorrow. Now, that's not to say that they can't be a non-participant tomorrow and then still find a way to be questionable or maybe find their way into the game on Sunday in some facet. But in the way that we see them on the field, especially for Trey Smith and Jawaan Taylor, you want them to be a limited participant because that means they're able to actually be out there and not worried about injury. Whereas if they're not limited tomorrow, I think it is highly, highly, highly unlikely that one, they even get the questionable status, and two, that they're able to play at all on Sunday's game versus the Houston Texans, which obviously it's a very big thing when you talk about their defensive group, their second best ranked defense in the entire NFL. But at the same time, we do have to look at their injury report. And while theirs is somewhat interesting because of a player that I've mentioned a couple times, it is a decent amount of their defensive guys. And that's, I'm not going to say ever injuries are a good thing, obviously, but I do find it really intriguing that we got to see a bunch of different things from the Chiefs side of things with their offensive line and their secondary. And if we look here at the Texans, lots of defense as well. So the big name up top, the guy who I am most worried about on the defense, especially if the injuries stay present with Trey Smith and Jawaan Taylor, it's Will Anderson Jr. The defensive end out of Alabama has been fantastic this season and has arguably come into his own and had, if he hasn't already had a breakout year in the NFL. Did not participate in Wednesday's practice. He was a limited participant in today's practice with a chest/shoulder injury. I would expect him to be active and playing on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that is more than likely. Some other names to kind of look at this. Another defensive end, and Danico Autry, a guy who is less powerful on the defensive line, but still very much a rotational piece for the Houston Texans. He did not participate in Wednesday's practice, and once again, just like Will Anderson, was a limited participant today. Another guy did the same thing. Trent Brown, their tackle. I believe it's going to be a hand injury for him, and for a tackle, you really need that to be in the right way. Now, we don't know if this finger, hand, like what exactly that is. If it's finger, they could easily just tape those up. If it's something in the interior part of the hand, that could cause some more trouble for him. Seems like it's just maybe stubbed finger or something. in my mind, should be good to go against the Chiefs. He did not participate and was a limited participant in today's practice. 2 guys did not participate in yesterday's practice. Or should I say 3 guys did not participate in yesterday's practice and then did not participate in today's practice as well that were not placed on IR. I should maybe put that. Tim Settle, defensive tackle with the foot injury, was placed on injured reserve. He wasn't a crazy big thing for the Texans, rather, but he definitely is something that, key guy for a rotational piece. But some guys who did not participate in both Wednesday's practice and Thursday's practice include Jamal Hill, the linebacker, Kamari Lassiter, a very good piece in their defense in the cornerback room. Obviously, the big name that was Derek Stingley Jr., but Kamari Lassiter has been a very good piece for the Texans this season. And then Jalen Reed with a forearm injury. He did not participate in the safety room both on Wednesday and on Thursday. Some other news in terms of their injuries: Azeez Al-Shaair, a linebacker known for his time at the Tennessee Titans, or maybe better known for some of the key, let's say, questionable morality on the hits, specifically against Trevor Lawrence. I believe it was last year where he took out Trevor and the entire league went abrupt on him. But limited participant on Wednesday. He is a full participant today. Expectations for him to play. And then a big one for the Houston Texans. Their running back room has been an interesting spot. They've had the likes of Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb, but Woody Marks, a rookie, has kind of really made his implantation on the offense and has said, hey, I'm going to take over. He was a non-participant on Wednesday. He actually came out of their game this past week against the Indianapolis Colts and did not return. And he is a limited participant in today's practice. Now, once again, obviously we can all speculate on the expectations, and I like to do my preview episodes on Thursday just because we can get a full expectation of who really won't play and who has a shot to play. But tomorrow we have the full report on who is going to play and who's not going to play, questionables, who is out, who is active, all of that sort with the injury report, not just with the Chiefs, but also with the Houston Texans. So make sure you stick around and watch tomorrow's episode as well, because we'll go through the full injury report a little bit quicker, probably kind of discussing who's out, who's in. The effects on the game are going to be the more important fact, because right now we can speculate. Tomorrow it's, okay, because of this, now we got to watch out for this. Or Jawaan Taylor's out, Wanya Morris has got to do this. Or Trey Smith is out. We got to see what's going on now without Josh Simmons, Trey Smith, and Jawaan Taylor on this offensive line. Is Esapol going to come up here and actually perform in a positive ratio after getting pulled up off the practice squad last week, signing the active roster this week? Lots of questions could come up from that, but we'll kind of discuss all that when it does come official tomorrow. So that is the Texans injury report. Do want to say that I think it is, again, injuries are never good, but the fact that Will Anderson is a little beat up could help a Chiefs team who might not have their best offensive line. But as I stated with Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, when you get out there on the field, when you get that adrenaline going, it's a different movie, and you can kind of forget all about your injuries at that point. We're going to take a quick break, get you a word from our sponsor, DraftKings. You can use a code 365Chiefs to get $5 and turn it into $300 of bonus bets instantly. Let's get a word from them now. Missouri, your moment is finally here because DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is now live in your state. Now you can make every game even more exciting with same-game parlays, money lines, props, and more. All from your phone, all safe, secure, and easy to use. Missouri fans know game day, the tailgates, the noise, the passion. Now, with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bring that same energy to every snap, every touchdown, every win. And right now, new Missouri customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. No waiting, no nonsense, just pure action powered by America's top-rated sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code 365Chiefs. New Missouri customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code 365Chiefs. Crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER 21+. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promo. Again, you can get $300 of bonus bets instantly when you put $5 in and you put that code 365Chiefs. want to say a big thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring and keeping us on the air. Obviously, it just went live in Missouri on December 1st. Got a Thursday night football game tonight. I'm on Ross St. Brown. Is he going to play? Is he not? But you do have George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb against a very good Lions team, and interesting matchup for sure. Obviously, we just saw the Cowboys. We know what they're capable of. You can go again and check it out on DraftKings. Put in a little parlay tonight with me. Maybe get the blood flowing in a way. Again, you put in $5, you can get $300 instantly in bonus bets if you use the code 365 Chiefs. For the Kansas City Chiefs, they are also in fight and die mode, I guess is the best way to say it, as they take on the Houston Texans in this upcoming Sunday's matchup. In case you are wondering, what exactly is the overall outlook right now for the playoff picture, the standings in the NFL? Well, let's just say the Texans would be a big win in more ways than one, because as we can see from the standings here in the AFC, the Houston Texans are just outside that playoff range right now with a 7-5 record, ranking 8th in the American Football Conference. Kansas City with a 6-6 record are technically tied with the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, the Steelers technically win the tiebreaker over Kansas City based on the best winning percentage in conference games, because as of right now, the Chiefs are 1-2, losing against both the Chargers and the Broncos, but beating the Las Vegas Raiders. They'll play all three of those teams in the next 5 weeks, and 3 of their last 4 games are against those guys. So that's obviously something to note. But either way, we slice it here. The 7 is the spot you're trying to get to. We know that. The Texans are trying to get that same spot, and they're going to be fighting with it, and they're going to be facing off against the Colts, and facing off against some of these teams. If you can beat the Texans and they go on, they beat other people, they are in that range, that 7 spot as well, you have the tiebreaker automatically because of head-to-head. There's all this tiebreaker, conference, best record, all that stuff, but ultimately, at the end of the day, if you've played this team in the regular season and you beat them, guess what? Tiebreaker, schmybreaker, don't matter. You automatically have it, as you are, in theory, the better team because you beat them. I mean, plain and simple, especially this late in the season, an obvious thing to know. Let's talk about this Texans team and this Chiefs team. I think the obvious factor that we go into is the Chiefs offense versus the Texans defense. And the Texans last week were ranked the number 2 defense in all of the NFL. This week, I believe they're actually the number 1 defense in terms of yards allowed per game. But that'll go head to head with a Kansas City Chiefs team that offensively puts up the 5th most yards per game. But the difference with Kansas City is it's not the yards per game that has been, quote unquote, the struggle. It's the points per game, because they rank top 5 in yards per game, but they're just inside the top 10 when it comes to points per game at 26.1. And they've been unable to win the close games. That's been the big thing. And looking at the defensive side of the ball, we can see that Houston, in terms of yards allowed per game, the number 1 team in the entire NFL. But it's not to laugh at the Chiefs defense. They're actually right inside the top 10 as well here, allowing just over 300 yards per game. In terms of the Texans offense, it's not exactly something to scoff at, and it's about mid. That's all it is. But at the same time, look at some other teams around here. Jacksonville lost to them. The Ravens, obviously, that's been partially because they haven't had Lamar Jackson. The Eagles, there's some good offenses in here, or rather, I should say, good teams in that mid-level range. But overall, the defensive metrics are otherworldly for the Houston Texans. They've been playing fantastic football, and it goes to Will Anderson. When you talk about points per game, they're allowing a whole point less than every single other team in the league. The only team that's close is the Los Angeles Rams. They allow 17.5 points per game. The Houston Texans allow 16.5 points per game. So with all this to be said, what are the odds makers saying? What is the big matchups to watch? Let's kind of go through that right now. So first of all, in terms of spread, money line, all that stuff, the Texans, they are a 3.5 point deficit. The Chiefs, meaning they are 3.5 point favorites. In terms of money line, Chiefs minus 180, Texans plus 152. Obviously, all of these are subject to change coming up on Sunday. The over-under is 42.5 points in this game, which I'm taking the under specifically just because of the defenses I think are better than the offenses in this. Again, it's going to be at 7:20 Central Time in, of course, Arrowhead Stadium, Gayha Field, excuse me. Texans are 7-5. Chiefs are 6-6. In terms of some trends, the over is 6-1 in the last 7 meetings between these two teams, and the under is 6-1 in the Chiefs' last 7 games. Chiefs are 1-4 against the spread in the last 5 games, and the Texans have lost 5 straight games to the Kansas City Chiefs. In terms of under, the Texans are 5-1 on that mark in their last 6 games, and the Texans are 6-3 against the spread in their last 9 games. So again, I talk about that under 42.5. I really do think this is a good matchup to bring that under in, because the Chiefs, in terms of the under, 6-1, I've hit for them in their last 7 games. And for the Texans, they're under 5-1 in their last 6 games. So obviously a big thing. For instance, one other injury I do want to mention, just because these are guys that are going to be out. Harrison Bryant, their tight end for the Texans, he's on IR. Joe Mixon is on the non-football injury list. He will not play. Johnny Carter, our cornerback, is on the IR list. And then the questionable and doubtful is getting placed on Jalen Reed as a doubtful, and Jamal Hill, linebacker, is gotten a questionable. In terms of the Chiefs, it's just a bunch of questionables, but overall, we know that the key player to watch for the Houston Texans is going to be Will Anderson Jr. He has 10.5 sacks on the season. In terms of 15 tackles for loss, he is one of the best players in the entirety of the NFL in terms of defense. And if you talk about this team, if you talk about the overall feeling of Kansas City and their offensive line, it's tough. Right now, Will Anderson has the 6th, or is tied for the 6th most sacks in the NFL at 10.5 with Nick Bonito. In terms of tackles for loss, he's actually a little higher, as he's 5th with 15 tackles for loss. Nobody has more than Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, though. Myles Garrett, 28, Max Crosby, 23. The next closest is Brian Burns with 18. Will Anderson Jr. is a huge piece, but somebody that kind of gets lost in the ruffles of all this is a former Minnesota Vikings. It's Danielle Hunter. He is a guy who you got to watch out for in this matchup. 11 tackles for loss. In terms of sacks, he only has 11 sacks. I say only 11. It's actually more than Will Anderson Jr., and that's why he kind of gets forgotten in this. He has more sacks than Josh Sweat, Nick Bonito, Will Anderson Jr., Byron Young, Aiden Hutchinson, Max Crosby, Harold Landry, Montez Sweat, a bunch of different guys. The only people above Danielle Hunter this season, Micah Parsons, Brian Burns, and Myles Garrett. The defensive edge rushers for the Houston Texans are the key pieces of this. And with a struggling and injured Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, it makes for this matchup to be a pivotal piece. So if you're talking about matchups to watch, if you're talking about the way that you're expecting this game to go down, you're going to know pretty quickly that the offensive line for the Chiefs will be able to hold up. Patrick Mahomes will be able to be mobile enough to get around Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, or it's going to be something that you watch out for and realize real quickly that, this actually might not be the best situation for Kansas City. And that's something that is going to be a little scary. In terms of interceptions, Houston's obviously on that list as well. Kalen Bullock, a safety, has 4 interceptions this season. That ties him for 4th. Jalen Petrie, the man out of Baylor University, he has 3 interceptions. That brings him tied for 8th. Derek Stingley Jr. has 3 interceptions. That has him tied for 8th, which, as you can imagine, puts the Houston Texans in a very good position team-wise, as they have 9 turnover differential, a +9 turnover differential, I should say, ranking them in the 3rd spot. And in terms of interceptions, you'd think they'd be a little higher, but they have 12, which ranks them tied for 4th when you put all things said and done. So I can talk a lot about the Texans defense. I can talk a lot about the statistics they have and overall the theming of this game, but it's going to come down to, can Patrick Mahomes make the big plays? Can the Chiefs win in the 1-score games? Can the Texans be able to silence the Arrowhead, whatever you want to call it, because the Chiefs have not lost a game against an AFC opponent in Arrowhead Stadium since 2023 on Christmas Day against, of all teams, the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, we talk about 1-score games, just to put this out here. In last week, the Texans were able to beat the Colts in a 1-score game, 20-16. The week prior against Buffalo, a 1-score game, they were able to win 23-19. Against Tennessee on week 11, a 1-score game, they won 16-11. Barely a 1-score game, but that was a 1-score game. Beat Jacksonville 36-29. They did lose a one-score game to Denver. And then past that, a lot of their games have been less than one-score games. Overall, they're about 500, though, because their first couple games of the season, they lost 3 in a row by a combined less than 20 points. They lost by 1 point, or excuse me, by 5 points to Los Angeles in Los Angeles in week 1, lost by 1 point to Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football in week 2, and lost by 7 points to Jacksonville in week 3. Since then, they've been a lot better in those 1-point games. In fact, 4-3 overall. And looking at the line here, one-score games are in the favor of the Texans. Defense are in the favor of the Texans. I'm not saying that the Chiefs have a uphill battle, but if their offensive line is not to the health that we expect or want, it's going to be a tough game out there for Patrick Mahomes to stay healthy. Forget staying healthy, just to stay dry, to stay clean, stay off the ground. The one thing I'll hold on to is the Chiefs are very good in Arrowhead Stadium. So if you're going to be at the game, get loud, get proud, and please represent Arrowhead properly, because they're going to need every single one of us as loud as possible. All right, so that's what we got for you today. Obviously, lots of things to break down tomorrow in terms of our official injury reports and what's to go on with that. We do appreciate you hanging out with us here, listening to today's podcast here on the 365 Sports Chiefs Report. We'll get another one out to you tomorrow. We'll have a post game on Sunday, and we'll see you next time here on the show. Peace out, everybody.
365 Sports.